Hello, my name is Christoph Leitner. I'm the lead setup engineer at Grape, and today I'm going to show you how to install your own Grape installation on your own premises. For this purpose, I've created a virtual machine droplet on DigitalOcean with 8 GB of memory and 4 virtual CPUs. That should be plenty for this presentation. I am now connected to the virtual machine, and I opened in the browser the Grape install documentation. This documentation starts with a checklist of system requirements and things that you should prepare, but we have prepared everything, and the virtual machine that we created on DigitalOcean does support everything. So we can go ahead and start with the installation step by step. The first thing you need to do is install Docker. I already did that, and you can see that we are running Docker version 1903.12. So the next step is installing Docker Compose, which is just used for orchestrating the 3 containers the web setup uses. Most of the Grape installation, as you will later see, is done in a website which we are going to install now. As the next step, we add a user, Grape, which is responsible for driving the entire Grape stack. And this user needs to be able to control Docker, so we add it to the Docker group. Usually, you're going to run your virtual machine behind a proxy, and step 4 is instructing you on how to configure Docker to use this proxy correctly. Since the DigitalOcean environment does not have a proxy, we can skip this step. Next, we add the base directory in which Grape and all its data is going to live, which is /data/Grape, and we hand over control of this directory to the Grape user. In the next step, we describe how to handle a TLS terminating proxy. So if you are doing TLS termination, you have to follow these steps to install your root CA as well in Docker as on the operating system, so we don't get flooded with SSL errors. But since we're not doing this either, we can skip also this step and continue with the actual Grape installation. Now we're going to switch to the Grape user and cd to its home directory. And there we're going to go ahead and download the Grape install script. Feel free, since you're going to install this on your machine, to less this file and make sure that this is safe and sane. Once you're satisfied, go ahead and execute it with bash install sh. You're going to be asked for a username and a password, which in our case is Grape development and the respective password. You are going to be provided these credentials by Grape. As you can see, they were successfully used to log into Docker. And now the install script is going to create a self-signed certificate and start up the Grape web setup stack, which is pretty much just a configuration website, much like other on-premise products you might know. This will take roughly a minute or so. Now the web setup is done installing, and it is running on the virtual machine's IP address with port 8888. I have the IP address here. And the credentials to enter this site are the same that we used for the installation of Grape. So Grape development and this password. And there we go. So this is the web setup page where we are going to download a Grape version. We're going to use the stable version, which is currently 4.17.9, and this might be much newer when you are actually doing this. As a first step to get Grape running is we need to configure it. As I mentioned earlier, we're not using a proxy, so in the global configuration we don't have to set anything specific here and just continue. In the Grape configuration, we have to set the Grape host name. This is the URL under which Grape will be running, and you should have DNS configured to point from this URL to your virtual machine's IP address. demo.ubergrape.com is the one we are using here. I'm also going to activate single organization mode. This means that Grape is going to run with just one organization with all the users in there, and your users are not going to see any subdomains. Let's just call this demo as well. And lastly, we decide under which name Grape is going to send emails. In our case, this is grape@ubergrape.com. You can set whatever you prefer. And the mail server is localhost. You can of course have whichever mail server you're using, and with or without credentials and TLS. Just set it up the way you need it. The same goes for Sentry. This is going to be sentry.demo.ubergrape.com. As email address we say sentry@ubergrape.com, and again localhost as the mail server. Finally, the proxy configuration can be left alone, and we go ahead and install Grape for the first time. Apply configuration and restart. Now, these are the steps that need to be done. This is a bunch of Ansible scripts that are running in the background. We're taking all the settings that we just here configured and write those into environment files. Then we download and start the Docker containers and mount the environment files in there so Grape can configure itself from the environment. This is probably going to take like 2 or 3 minutes the first time. It depends on the internet connection speed of your server, because here at the first installation all of the big containers have to be downloaded, and all the configuration files have to be written for the first time. If you want to keep watching something, you can turn off auto scroll and it's gonna stay there. And in case some data doesn't look just right in this, you can turn off the wrapping. The last step is running Docker Compose up on the entire Grape stack, which can take a little while. And there we go. Grape is done installing. As you can see, installation successful. Now, at this point, Grape is not running just yet. If I go to the page, apart from showing me a privacy error because the certificates are still self-signed, as you can see, Grape is still in the maintenance mode. The reason for that is that the containers are still starting up. You can go to status and logs and watch the Grape runtime actually booting up. Right now, as you can see, it's applying database migrations, which is a one-time operation that needs to be done at the first install every time. And this is one of the reasons why the first startup is going to be somewhat slower than later on. And this is it. Grape is booted up. You can see here that the chat-Grape WebSocket and request response processes are running, as well as Celery and the internal Nginx. And now, when I reload the page, I get to sign in. Grape is running. Okay, now that Grape is set up, there is one more very important thing that we need to do, and that is to add a correct certificate for HTTPS so people don't get warnings in their browsers. So first we have to upload the certificate to the VM. As you can see here, I have already a certificate prepared, which is in two parts, a CRT and the key, in the X509 format. So let's upload those to our virtual machine. And let's upload the key file as well. And now when I go over here to /home Grape, you can see the files are in here. In order for Grape to use those, they have to be changed ownership to Grape. So chown grape for the start demo.star. Now you can see the permissions are fixed, and now we're going to copy these files. Actually, let me switch over to the Grape user with su-grape. Very important to use the minus so the environment is being sourced correctly. As you can see, I reopened the documentation and went all the way down to the setup certificates for Grape and Sentry section. So we are going to have to replace several certificates over there, but first let's copy the certificates to the proper destination folder, which is data grape config proxy SSL. So we just mv star to this directory, and now let's cd into this directory and see what we got. The existing certificates that are currently being used are called grapecrt and grape.key, and similarly for Sentry we're using sentry.crt and sentry.key. Now the certificate that I just uploaded is star-demo-ubergrape.com, and this is actually a wildcard certificate that is going to cover Grape and Sentry. So what I need to do is just copy the certificate data over to grape.crt and sentry.crt and copy the .key file to grape.key and sentry.key. After this is done, let's just confirm that the data is correct. Yeah, that looks correct. And finally, we have to restart the reverse proxy so it actually uses these new certificates. This is only taking a second. And when it's done, we should no longer get a security warning. This certificate is valid. I don't know why the browser is still showing this. Let's just go to a private demo. Yeah, as you can see, now the certificate is fine.